What makes the achievement of emotional sobriety so difficult is the habits we have, the patterns we have in our behavior, the habitual ways that we've come to think about things. We have to really become aware of those things in order to challenge them, because the consciousness that has created a lot of the problems in our life cannot solve it, cannot change things. So what happens is the first step is waking up. We've been exploring how the 12 steps help us achieve emotional sobriety. And we've been doing this for over a year now. And I feel a little sad. It's coming to end tonight. This is the last meeting on the 12 steps. We will continue this Thursday night meeting. Next week, we will start an exploration of a topic that I've brought up a lot, and I've even equated emotional sobriety to raising our differentiation. So the next several weeks we'll be focusing on and exploring Dr. Murray Bowen's concept of differentiation and relating it to emotional sobriety. So those of you that have wondered about that term, and if you've heard me use it, come on to the workshop next week and I'll be talking about it, and we'll be really digging into it and trying to understand what Dr. Bowen was talking about. And I think after we're done with it, you'll realize, as I do, the great contribution he made to mental health and to understanding, what makes us tick. So that will start next week. But tonight, we are wrapping up the 12 steps. And as I've said before, when we look at the overall picture in terms of what's happening, the arc of the 12 steps and the way that it heals, or another way to say it is the therapeutic value of the 12 steps, is they help us grow up. They help us let go of some very, very early childlike ways of being in this world and really developing an adult ego state. We've equated emotional sobriety as emotional freedom. We unhook ourselves from being dependent on people, places, and things for our well-being, for our happiness, for our serenity, for our joy, for our sense of satisfaction or purpose. And instead of looking outside of ourselves, we now see that it's the relationship we have with the world, the relationship we have with ourselves, the relationship we have with others, the relationship we have with God that is going to determine how we experience our life. And so as we grow through emotional sobriety, we learn to claim our experience rather than let any experience claim us. And that doesn't mean we do it always automatically and immediately when we're knocked off balance, because that would be, once again, thinking that we can somehow do this thing perfectly. But as my dear friend Thom says all the time, is practice, practice, practice. And we even hear that theme presented again in step 12, is we strive to learn from our experience. That's what growth is all about. You see, early on, we would learn from our experience automatically. When you are learning to walk as an infant, your central nervous system would just process the information that it acquired from you falling and not being able to walk well, from making a mistake. And that information would be now taken in, and you'd get up and you'd try again and you'd fall again. And you'd keep falling, and each fall your nervous system was learning more and more about how to walk. And eventually, one time, that information came together in a gestalt. And all of a sudden, you took that first step and your parents went crazy. Oh my God, Alan took his first step. It's amazing. He's going to conquer the world. It's that kind of thing. Our parents go nuts over those little things, and then when we say no, they go crazy. Why are you saying no to me? Do what I want you to do. But that comes too. That's part of our differentiation. But you see, we learn physically without all of these shoulds and supposed tos in our head. As we develop through life, we really get disconnected from this organismic wisdom that just takes information and processes it and then helps us grow with that information. And we start to have shoulds and expectations of ourselves, and we get lost in all of that. That's why many times you've heard me say that recovery is really recovering our lost true self. We're recovering our organismic wisdom that we got disconnected from. And as we connect to it, we start to grow into what we can be. That was the pivot that happened in step 6 and 7, when we started to strive to develop the best possible attitude that we can have towards our life and towards our relationships, with others and with our experience. So this has been quite a journey, and we now are, I think much more connected to ourselves if we've really worked the 12 steps. And, people say, well, are there any people that can sponsor me and work in the steps? Well, guess what? You guys are the pioneers. This is the first workshop that I know about that has focused on taking people through and understanding the steps from the perspective of emotional sobriety. So each one of you now can go out and continue to plug this into your own life and start to help others. Take other people through the 12 steps according to what we've talked about. We've documented this. There's over 60 or maybe 70 videos right now that Patrick Newman has edited and placed in a YouTube channel, and that will be posted, I'm sure, as I'm saying this, and you'll be able to connect with it. And so, you guys are a part of that, the spearhead of this next major development. Didn't happen, unfortunately, in Bill's lifetime, but I think it's going to happen in ours. So please continue to carry this message that you've learned here. It's very powerful. I'm getting messages from all kinds of different places in the world about how powerful it is to start applying this to their recovery and what it means to them, and that they're finding that just it's been breathing a new life into many people's experience in their recovery, and especially a lot of us, long timers that have been around for a while, that this opens up so many new doors and possibilities in our life and in our recovery, as that's my experience with it too. It's been a phenomenal thing. And so with some sadness, we bring this discussion of the 12 steps to an end. But as I said, we will be continuing. And the next conversation will be about differentiation. But before I invite my esteemed colleagues into the room with me, I want to read something that Bill wrote and that I found in the language of the heart. So let me share this with you because I think it really captures what we've talked about so well. Bill said this: sobriety is only the bare beginning. It is only the first gift of the first awakening. And if more gifts are to be received, our awakening has to go on. And if it does go on, if our awakening does go on, we find that bit by bit by bit, we can discard the old life, the life that was based on our emotional dependence, the life that was grounded in our immaturity, the life that was based on being undifferentiated, of having low self-esteem. We can replace that life and discard it for the one that didn't work, for a new life that can and does work under any conditions whatever. Please listen to what he said, that emotional sobriety means that our life can work under any conditions. It works when things are going well, and it works when things are going to shit. It works when things are going our way, and especially when things aren't. It works when we're happy and when we're disappointed. That's the beauty of this. This is why I talk about emotional sobriety as being a consciousness of emotional freedom. A consciousness of emotional freedom. He goes, for a new life that can and does work under any conditions, whatever. Can you hear the autonomy in that? Our freedom in that? He goes, regardless of success or failure. I love the idea that, what makes success and failure, how they're similar, is that they're both temporary. You're going to experience both in your life. Sometimes you're going to be successful, sometimes you're going to fail. But neither one of them is going to be true all the time. But if you're a control freak like me, you want success all the time. You don't ever want to fail, which is such nonsense. Regardless of pain or joy, regardless of sickness or health, or even of death itself. A new life of endless possibilities can be lived if we are willing to continue our awakening. Now, how do we continue our awakening? By examining every time you're disturbed. In our disturbance lies the key to our freedom. In trying to understand the forces that determine our reaction to life in the way that we are, comes our freedom. Then we can live in that gap between the stimulus and the response. But we have to see our emotional dependency clearly and the other forces that are operating in our life to get us to react. So I really appreciate those of you that have stuck around through this whole discussion of the 12 steps. It's really been a very important experience for me. I've really enjoyed being able to share this with you and to talk about these things and having you here to share these things. And so I appreciate and I'm grateful for having you and participate in this journey that we've taken. And so without further ado, let me invite Thom into the room. I'm not so sure Roger made it tonight. Roger, if you are here, please join us as well.
I am here.
Okay, fantastic.
There he is. I see him.
And there you are. I see you.
Me too. I see me also.
Almost in the flesh. Go ahead, Thom, if you're of a mind.
Okay. Well, I just want to say, first of all, that Goofy is my favorite Disney character, and it's obvious. So we'll let that go. Alan, this has just been this has been. I love the way I love what you just said about the idea that and the understanding that we look at this, pan back, and we look at these, however long we've been doing this, and what has been created in the meantime, the YouTube videos of all of this, and you really have led us through a boot camp of 12-step, learning how to apply 12 steps to emotional sobriety. It's like, it's. I feel honored to be a part of the sort of the guiding or the teaching part of this too. But I've certainly just gone through this as a participant, and it has, you talk about, it's funny when you said, you were quoting me on saying practice, practice, practice. I was actually writing down the phrase at that time, be sure to translate this to practice. It's like, so I'm realizing I may have become through this process a one-trick pony. It's just me. My life's going to be simpler. I'm just going to sit in my office, and when people talk, then I'm going to say, well, what are you going to do about it? It's like, that's fine. That's what you think, but what are you going to do about it? And it's like, but one of the things though, I want to say, and this, there's a voice in my head that's telling me I'm being selfish, but I just want to share this because it's really, it's important. I told you a while back, Alan, that I've come to appreciate the very first book I ever wrote, The Simple Truth, more through this process than I ever had appreciated it before, because I recognize all of the concepts in here. And I told you one time that I think I wrote this book, and you said, yeah, I know you wrote the book. I said, no, I think I wrote the book, like this me, not the me from 1989. It's like, and I had, and so I think I channeled back in time and did this because there's so much of this stuff that is right on target. And so as we're wrapping this up, the very last chapter, or almost the last chapter in my book, is called Generic Addiction. And it's really, the essence of it is basically, I'll read the first paragraph real quick. I am an alcoholic. By the grace of God and other recovering addicts, I am alive and well today. For this, I'm eternally grateful. Along my recovery path, however, I have discovered that alcohol and mood-altering drugs are not my only addictions. I am a relationship addict. I am a workaholic. I am a control addict. I am a negativity junkie, as well as possessing tendencies toward food, spending, money, and a multitude of other addictions. I am a white hat addict, severely addicted to being seen as the good guy by all who know me, and I'm battling perfectionism as I write this very sentence. And basically, what I've decided, the name of this chapter is Generic Addiction. It's like, and I'm just an addict, and I realized when you were talking, there's a section here called Defining Addiction, and it just says, as nearly as I can tell, and I'm sure I wasn't this smart in 1989. I like this though, but so I think I'm thanking you for it, even though I didn't know you at the time. As nearly as I can tell, addiction is an accurate description of the human condition, looking for fulfillment in all the wrong places. Combine this misdirected seeking with a tendency or even compulsion to return again and again to proven ineffective behaviors and relationships, and there you have it, addiction. Most simply, when I return to any perceived source of fulfillment or comfort again and again, in spite of history of negative consequences with that source, I am in an addictive cycle. Breaking out of the cycle and returning to my spiritual source is the struggle of my humanness. I am challenged to recover the memory of who I am at the spiritual core. In order to do so, I must fully acknowledge my earthly addictiveness and accept responsibility for correcting misdirected, seeking behaviors that are harming myself and others. And that's it. And thank you for putting me, there's not a lot of original thoughts in the world, but we rediscover things in different ways and different angles. And you've really put me in touch you've taught me so much, you and Roger also. Roger, you've so many people here too, but you guys in particular have taught me. I've learned so much from you specifically, but I really get this idea that you also have reconnected me to. There's just something about I'll be turning 68 this week, and so there's just something about being this age and realizing, wow, I'm just so excited that I'm still learning so much and connecting to this. And I'll finish that sentence I was saying, and I'll shut up. It's that you have also through this process, or everybody. This isn't just you. This is everybody that's been a part of this group. Have reconnected me and reminded me of all that has gone before, all the things I have learned before. And I know that I'll forget it again tomorrow, and I have to keep coming back to it. But this has just been a beautiful, beautiful ride. Thank you.
Thank you, Thom. So, first of all, Al, it's somehow appropriate that you are at one of the few happiest places on earth to finish this more than year-long series of meetings about 12 steps in emotional sobriety. I want to acknowledge, Al, your commitment to this, that you're showing up in Disney World, for God's sake, after hiking 12 miles to still host this meeting. You didn't have to do this. You could have gotten a substitute host for tonight, but it does speak volumes, man, in a very positive way.
Yes.
About your commitment to, helping, your commitment to being of service, and your commitment to helping people grow. So I do want to take a minute to just acknowledge you for that, Alan. You could be going on the Star Wars ride again right now or wherever. So as you two were talking, a couple of things came up for me. That line from the letter that Brian wrote of Bill W.'s about real maturity and balance, which is to say humility, just keeps coming back to me over and over again. Because whenever we're talking about these subjects, and I realize we're talking to 139 people right now, I'm always keenly aware not just of the general themes in emotional sobriety about emotional dependency and all the demands and all the manipulation. But what comes to me all the time is we're speaking to 139 individuals who are all different from one another. And the message that I might need to hear is not necessarily the most important message that somebody else needs to hear. I've talked about this before. If I grew up in a way where I developed coping styles that focused pretty much on me and me alone to the exclusion of others, and developed what we sometimes call a narcissistic style of coping and functioning, I may need to hear different parts of this message than somebody who grew up in a way where deep-seated emotional dependency in all the ways that Bill W. talked about it, and we so frequently talk about it, are the messages that I may need to hear. So that's one thing I wanted to say is knowing ourselves, I've said it before, but paying attention to our own patterns, including the feedback we get from other people, not being so committed to never letting anyone edit our reality that we don't let in important information that other people have to offer us. So that's one theme I wanted to sound is we need to pay attention to our experience in our life, pay attention to the feedback we're getting from other people so that we can learn who we are, so we can learn what our patterns are. As we do that, we're going to be able to filter out the messages related to emotional sobriety that are going to be the most helpful and the most important to us. I loved it a couple of months ago when Alan was talking about when we're in crisis, when we're in struggle, that what we need to do repeatedly is add more self to that situation. And I've always had an issue with Alan saying that, as you might imagine, because if my style is to be overly self-centered, to draw the line over and over again in my life in my favor as to the exclusion of or the rejection of other people's points of view, that way of putting it didn't ring right with me. But a couple of months ago, Alan said, and I'm talking about add more self to the situation, meaning your emotionally sober self. Mm-hmm. Not the self that Harry Tebow talked about, not King Baby. Okay. Mm-hmm. And if I was a little voice in the background with Alan, every time he said that, I would add that little parenthetical comment. Oh, yeah, that's the emotional sober self we're talking about, not King Baby. And I know that's what Alan means when he talks about that. We're not talking about the least mature, least balanced, most one-sided dimensions of who we are. We're talking about the emotionally sober self that includes me and you, includes you and me. So the idea of humility is what allows me to pay attention to my experience and learn from it. And again, individual differences. If I'm somebody who has terrible self-esteem most of the time, I'm always running myself down, I'm always being critical toward myself, I don't need more help learning to run myself down. I don't need more help humiliating myself. I need help learning to support myself, discover what my integrity looks like and feels like and sounds like to me. On the other hand, if I'm so wrapped up in myself that I can't get outside of myself, then humility is probably the most important attribute that I can possibly cultivate. Rudyard Kipling, there was a great movie decades ago called Chariots of Fire. And I remember a line from that fire where they talked about learning to treat, failure and success, triumph and disaster just the same, just like Alan was talking about earlier. That if we can learn to treat those two imposters just the same, then we've done something. Then we've gotten beyond defining ourselves in terms of a particular success or a particular failure. And from my point of view, if I've been able to do that, at least in a particular situation, I've matured a little bit. I've grown up a little bit. So I've learned an incredible amount from you, Alan, and from you, Thom, and from, everybody else that served as a discussant, from so many people who have shared from the meeting. I want to thank you each and all for the learning that you've helped me experience in the course of the time that I've been able to participate in this, you guys. So thank you to everyone. Thanks very, very much.
Amen.
I hear a lot of people criticize the 12 steps that they're old-fashioned. I can understand that criticism. They were written back in 1935. Some people that are agnostic have difficulty with the word God used in the steps. For me, I look at the process that's involved. The forces that the 12 steps generate are so powerful that I think they're ageless. There's this interesting phenomena that happens when you work the steps. They create a charge and then a discharge. The first step, we're powerless. Our life has become unmanageable. It creates this charge. We're in big trouble and we don't know what to do. And then step 2 comes along and it says we have hope. That charge, that existential crisis that we have is resolved. What's happening here is parallel to life. We charge ourselves when we breathe in. When we exhale, we discharge. That's the rhythm of life. And the way I love to think about the 12 steps, it's helping us get connected to the rhythm of life so we can learn how to show up in a good way.